Hi, I'm Nathan Philippi from the Department of Geology and Geography.
I'm Jesse Rouse from the Department of Geology and Geography, and yes, you did just see him dance.
And wave. Do we need to do that again?
No, that
Okay.
is going in. You did it. It's
I
done.
did it.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about mobile data, field data collection this week. We, of course, will talk about how Esri allows us to have various mobile apps to do this. And there's whole things that we could talk about later on in future years when we do this again about being able to make your own mobile apps using Esri software. But first, I actually wanted to talk just a little bit about some of the other options for field data. So let's talk about field data. What is field data? And this is such a big question that there's many answers.
It's data found in the field.
There you go. And what kind of data do we find in the field?
Usually grass and flowers and bugs that fly up your nose.
Okay, so we have a lot of biology data, a little bit of soils maybe. Did you mention soils? I think you did.
Nope, don't talk about dirt.
Okay,
Not a geologist.
okay. What else? What else do you find out in those fields?
Well, sometimes there's people.
It's people. Yeah.
One of
So
the
there's
funnest things about field research that I guess I sort of miss but sort of don't is the people, right? There's always those people that want to come out and talk your ear off or shoot you. I once had a person pull a gun on me. That was fun.
um, two times, maybe three.
Ooh,
Yeah, two or three times. Fun is a way of putting it. Yeah, sure. Um,
interesting.
yeah. You just say thank you, sir. Have a good day. I'll talk to you,
I actually took
or
his
I will not
picture.
talk to you later. Actually,
But hey, let me take your picture there.
nowadays, yeah, that was not what you did back in the day. You just said thank you and left. Um,
So
so with that, we basically can record anything, everything from location to values to qualitative information. And so there's lots of different tools that we can use to do that. And you, of course, know many of them for your own discipline. But we just wanted to talk about a few that are easy. And one of those that I want to start with, which is perhaps easiest, especially for most of us, is using Office 365 or Google. Um, both of them have Forms apps that you can go through and generate your own forms that you can use out in the field. So, for instance, we have a group of students that are going out and doing data collection um, every month or every week, depending on where it is. And so we just generated a form where they can go through and collect that data. And since it's being captured in this case, Microsoft Forms, it's just dumping that information straight out to a table in Excel. So I can review the results here, or I can open up in Excel and then use that data for other purposes since it's all values. It's a pretty straightforward way of collecting data for yourself or for your students.
that's really nice too because you can either use your phone or a pad or a laptop computer to put that information in, which is really nice because it beats the heck out of wandering around with slips of paper and a pencil or a pen, which would used to always blow away in the wind if you weren't careful.
Now, I am still a big proponent of having the physical form there as well. So whenever we send the students out to do this, they have the physical form and they're collecting it this way. That way we have um, two sources, and if anything's wrong on one of them, we can look at the other to see what they actually meant. We're all uh, butterfingers whenever it comes to typing sometimes, and so we get some odd numbers, and then we can go back to the field form. In fact, if you look right here at this top one, um, we go from 3.59 meters and 3.77 meters in two of the last three to 5.53.
Hmm.
Guessing there was a typo there, and given that, well, that actually might have been me that typed that in wrong. But that's neither here nor there. we have the physical form to go back and look at that to verify that value for that day. So that's forms. Moving on then to the Esri software. They have a number of pieces of software, and like I said, you can develop your own, and another one is coming out next year that's going to kind of wrap together the ones we're showing you today that they just announced because their annual user conference is going on this week. This is Arcgis Survey123, and it's built to allow you to do basic data collection. We'll leave a link to the general information for it and the getting started for it, and really quickly just show you how we can create a new survey. So again, I recreated.
Sorry to interrupt, but does our license cover that extension so people that are part of the faculty or students can have access to that app, or do we have to pay for that on your own?
Of course, we're not showing you anything that you don't have access to as a faculty or a student or staff. So again, we all have Microsoft 365 access. We all have access to these portions of Esri software. Again, the only things that we don't get access to are things that Esri themselves licenses from someone else. So everything that Esri makes, we have access to. That includes Survey123, Quick Capture, and Collector that we'll be talking about today.
Okay.
So again, just recreated the Wells form from Microsoft Forms into here, so you can see what that would look like. But again, we can go through and create whatever we want to. So we can create a new survey, call it sample. I don't know, what do we want to collect information about? You talked about grass and flowers, so we'll go with flowers.
Do like flowers.
Create this form. Now, all of this is done in the cloud, but as I'll show you in just a second, all of these can be accessed via your mobile device. So let's see, what kind of things do we want to throw in here? Let's toss a map in. Let's toss in a multiple choice. Was it cool? Oops, I always forget. You do everything on the right hand side. Yes, no, kinda. If we have some data that we want to collect.
Oh, I like that you can take a picture on an image.
How tall was it? Oh, let's add in a picture then. Let's see.
The image.
The image. Yeah. Keep forgetting. Oh, no. I'm going to go with this instead. Didn't happen. Can't even spell happen. I don't know. And,
No, you can't.
we can go through and add other things. And if you want to make sure that someone verifies that they did it, we can add in a signature. All types of things that we can add in. If we're going out and collecting data about someone, we can get their email, or we can create a. Oh, actually, let's add in a Likert scale. Where did it look okay? Apparently, I still couldn't spell. Happen. Is that where you're saying that I still couldn't spell happen?
Yeah, that's okay. Nobody's judging.
So there we go. We've created this. We can preview it.
You can even add notes. Wow, that's really slick.
So this is what it would look like on a computer screen
Okay.
or on a phone screen. So we can scroll down through it on a phone screen. How tall was it? Where was my Likert question? Oh, there it is up there. I prefer it to start with strong and go to disagree. I'll see if later on if I can flop that, but and on a tablet.
Wow.
So we can do that preview. Or once I save it and publish it to switch over, once that happens, and I type in my tablet password apparently, that to publish. While we're waiting for that to publish, we'll switch over real quick. So this is the Campus Wells. This is my tablet I'm reaching for over here. We can come in and collect data on that. That's that original form that I showed you at the beginning. Won't save any of that. Go back over and see if published. Okay. So in theory, now if I refresh. Okay, well, you saw it running on the device, you know that it does work. And for some reason, it's not updating on the device. Huh. Odd. Okay, we'll keep going though and talk about quick capture. Quick capture allows you to capture data quickly. For this though, we need to have some data to work with. Now you can start from a template, but I'm going to start from a layer because that's what the instructions that I'm going to share with you do. We're going to collect some points. We do want to use GPS for this. Since I'm not in North Carolina right now, we're going to come down to my portion of the world and say this is the area that the layer is going to be created for. Sample for data collection and take these defaults. Always, of course, best practices are to fill out everything so that if you share the data with someone else or you leave the organization, someone else picks up the project, then they'll have an idea of what it was related to.
Yes. It's always important to do that.
So we have our sample layer. I'm going to go into the data and add a field. So we're going to be looking for thingies. And we're going to say we want to count the number of thingies. So we're just going to say that we want an integer because we're going to have whole values. And we're going to assume that the default is 0. We don't have to include that, but okay. So now if I come down here, I can see that there's a new column somewhere in here along with all the other data. Let me go over to the table view. Oh well, the thing that I just added is there now. So I can go into quick capture, and this is quick capture. It allows us to create data collection schema. Again, we'll link out to this getting started guide. We can just come in here, use an existing layer, use this one that I just created.
So this is an app for your phone?
Yep, this is going to be another app for your phone. Now, again, all of this has to be done beforehand before you go out into the field. So
you have to know what it is that you're looking for before you.
yeah, you have to plan and create it. So I'm creating this quick capture project first, and then we'll go through and show it on the device. So we're going to be collecting to this point layer. We want to capture all the fields. I'm going to leave these on.
Well, you can turn them off if you want to, right?
Yeah, but we're going to let it capture from the device itself. Actually, device. Yeah, let's do that. So all of this data again up here is being captured by default, and then down here we'll be able to go through and enter our data as we want to. Just want to make sure that was all there. Fine if this is what it looks like. We could go through in our file beforehand and set it up so that we have different categories. So if we have categorical data, in fact, if we were going through and the example that we'll link to talks about capturing trees or species of trees and other structures on the business campus that makes this software. And they have categories for big trees, little trees, fountain, structure, statue, those type of things. And so you'd be able to set it up so that your user would be able to go out, stand where something is, hit the new feature button, and then you would select what kind of feature it was. So we're just going to capture a number as opposed to doing one of those categorical data. But
If you come across something in the field that you didn't anticipate, are you able to add?
it all depends on how you set up your project.
Okay.
Of course, best practices is generally leave an extra thing that has other and then a notes for that other. Okay, so we have that project is not shared with anyone. Let's change that and share it with myself. Okay. Again, we can see what it looks like on different devices. So iPad Pro, get Nexus 7, Pixel, current gen iPhone. Okay, switching over then to this, we'll switch over to Capture. I'm going to update my workspace. I'm going to update my workspace. There we go. Example. No, go ahead and add the buildings, one that I already had there as well. So now we have both of these in there. Well, those don't show up too well, do they? Too bright. Bring the brightness down. See if it's easier to see.
Oh, there you go.
Is that better for you?
Yeah.
So you can see sample and buildings. Okay, so here's our sample. Again, I'm on a device that doesn't actually have GPS on it, so it's going to give me issues, but I can create a new feature. Well, it's not going to let me do it because of the GPS, is it? So I could do this if I were on my phone. My phone adapter isn't working, so couldn't do that. But again, it gives you a chance to go out, collect data for a layer. Okay, to go back to your earlier question, yeah, I mean, all of these that we're collecting data for different layers that we're going to use later, whether it's a buildings layer or a trees layer or something like that. And so, yeah, you do have to pre-plan what you're doing pretty specifically. But that's true, I think, for most field work. But yes, definitely, whenever you're dealing with something digital and technical, and that is server based, part of the time. You can download these, use them in the field, and upload it again. But you do have to be much more thoughtful about what you expect to find in the field and the data values that you're going to want to use while you're out there. So yeah, it does limit you. And again, that's where going back and having that extra field form or notes column in your digital form allows you to make up for that.
Yeah, I've used the data capture device before. I don't know if they had that survey in place a couple of years ago. I don't know when that came out, but the data collector, that ArcGIS collector, is fairly easy to use. It's pretty handy to have out in the field, especially with your cell phone. It's nicer to just walk around with your phone in your hand and collect the data than it was to lug around those clunky GPS devices back a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And anybody can do this now. I mean, back, up to 7 years ago, roughly, you had to purchase a GPS data collector device from Trimble or one of those companies. And now today, just download the app, and as long as you have the license to use it, you can just pick it up off your phone, which is nice.
Yeah, I would say the new phones came out around 2007, and so it would have been about 4 years before we had decent software for them. So we began to see the earliest GPS data collection on mobile devices or consumer mobile devices, I should say, probably in 2011, 2012. Now, do keep in mind that the GPS in your phone uh, is being assisted by the cell phone network. So it does have some capabilities that a traditional GPS doesn't have, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like it needs to get you in a very exact location. There's no um, averaging of points. There's no, um, without a separate device, there's no real-time kinematic updates, those type of things for the GPS in your phone. Though, do be aware that most phones that have been sold in the last 4 years have both GPS and GLONASS. Some, I believe, have BiDAL as well, which BiDAL went fully operational. So the Chinese GNSS went fully operational last week or sometime in the last month, I think. Galileo, of course, we're beginning to see Galileo chipsets shipping, especially for phones that are shipping in Europe. Um, so yeah, I mean, we're getting more options, or we have lots of options in terms of the GNSS system that we use. We just kind of, most of you probably think that you just have a phone that captures location, but that location is actually captured in many, Cookie Monster, of course. Um, it's captured by various software for you, or sorry, chipsets for you. Got distracted by Cookie Monster. Okay, where was I going? Oh, collector. Collector is the most um, troublesome of them all. You do have to do the most prep work to get something ready for collector of any of them. You have to create a map. You have to define where that map is going to be collecting data for. If you make too small of an area and you need to go outside of that area, you're going to have to go back and create a new map. Um, you have to set up your data layers appropriately. So everything that we've looked at with survey and quick capture is meant to be a little bit more, well, quick, a little easier for prep, and easier for people who aren't familiar with GIS to use in the field. Collector definitely assumes that you have GIS experience.
Of course, a lot of what you're saying is, I mean, before you go out in the field, you have to know what you're going to be looking at anyways, what your parameters are for the area and specific data that you're picking up. So really what you're saying isn't anything that should be surprising for doing field work.
Yeah. Here you can see me coming into my neighborhood, and um, this particular project was built for us to have students collect information about buried utilities on campus as they were doing the road construction and moving utilities around. They were delineating and marking a lot of where utilities were, so we were able to go out and capture that data along Odom or Prospect, whatever you want to call that road. We have projects for campus map and all types of things. The problem is, of course, I'm not where most of my projects are set up. So whenever I open them, they come up here. So yeah, it's a handy project capability, but again, you have to have planning and forethought in advance. Such as I should have had planning and forethought and been on campus whenever we did this episode.
Well, it's a good demonstration to stress that, though, right? I mean, that's
Sure.
so you don't need to be on campus to set it up. You just need to be on campus to utilize it.
Well, because most of my projects are campus oriented or, in places where I'm doing field work. So Japan, state parks, those type of things that you can see in the screen here. That's where I would need to be to use these. So since I'm
So
not in one of those.
after you collect this data, where does it send it to? How do I open it up so it shows where I collected this information?
So all this data, and this is for all three of these projects, for survey, for quick capture, and for collector. All of this is saving into ArcGIS Online. So you're using ArcGIS Online to build your projects. You're using ArcGIS Online to be able to access the data afterwards. You
So
can bring it out, of course.
before you start any of this, you have to make sure that you have an account on ArcGIS Online, which is different from setting up a what am I trying to say here? An ArcGIS licensing, right? Am I saying that right?
It depends. Yeah, I mean, so desktop has independent licensing,
Yeah.
but ArcGIS Pro, you're using your ArcGIS Online account to log into Pro. Um,
Which will soon become a default, so it won't matter, right?
Yeah, but right now, yeah, but if you do, again, if you do want to use any of this, reach out to me and we can get you started. If you're installing it on your own machine and you have administrative privileges, I can get you the installer and the license. If you're installing it on a computer on campus, then we'll work with Do It to get your software installed using a request for them to install it. And of course, for ArcGIS Online, I'll generate an account for you if you're interested. So
I would recommend to anybody that if you're new to ArcGIS and you're seriously contemplating about taking this opportunity to have access to this site, you just use ArcPro and learn one of these software packages because they are, even though they are similar, there's enough differences in them that it can feel overwhelming to have to learn desktop versus Pro, and Pro is set up to be much more user friendly after you become familiar. Stop shaking your head. I'm trying to sell this. As you become familiar with using.
I'm going to argue that neither is user friendly because it is a massive piece of software. We literally have not scratched the surface on what you can do.
Well, maybe I should say as you become more familiar with it, it's easier to just know one than it is to use many. How's that?
Well, that's always true. Yes, I don't disagree with that.
Okay.
I don't want to give them the false sense of that it's going to be easy to pick up.
Yeah,
There are little things like whenever you save a document that has nothing to do with your data. So you have to make sure to save your data if you're editing it and save the document that your data is in. And it's little things like that that are what really throws off our students because it's different the way you do that in Pro versus how you do it in Map.
Yeah, and I really shouldn't talk about Pro because again, I haven't used it just because it's a lot to learn.
But if you're starting from scratch, it is best to go with Pro because, as we found out this week, more or less the interface starting next year is going to be Pro for the most part.
Hmm.
So we'll talk about that after the the recording.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's lots of things you can do with data collection. If you're interested, let us know, and we'll be happy to work with you to get things set up. Whether you use that data in ArcMap later on, or if you're just going to use it in a different application, export is available.
Yeah. Good. Bye.